All right. So one of the things we talked about yesterday, we're in the third section of this first chapter. We're talking about time cards. And this is something that if you're in that profession where you have to log hours, you have to make a spreadsheet of the hours. Maybe you're not under contract, but you have a certain hourly rate that you make. I know some of your jobs that you guys were listing had that. This would be something like you'd have to do, or maybe the office personnel does that for you, but you should always double, triple check that to make sure that they're not taking time out of your pocket, because maybe they just marked it wrong. You had the time chart, but they typed in their payroll wrong, and you were out of money. That's something you need to check. It's your responsibility to do that. They send you a copy, you should double check it. So one of the things we have to talk about is just the process itself for finding time, the hours that you've worked. We're going to discuss that. There's a couple different things we have to discuss with this today. Things that we didn't maybe necessarily go into in depth yesterday. Number one, it's called renaming values. Renaming is when you take a number and you change it. Like, for instance, the 6:30 a.m. to noon. I'll show you the shortcut for how you're supposed to figure out the time between it. Bless you. Most people do it with their hands, but if you're in those weird times like I did an example yesterday, you'll have to rename one of the times, and I'll show you the shortcuts that I use to do that. We'll talk about that. So renaming values, and then finding total hours. So on the board here, I have a couple examples. The goal today is after we do, example here on the board, I do a couple of them where I talk about renaming, we do this. I'm going to assign a couple of problems in class just for you guys to try, like this roll will do a certain problem, this roll will do a certain problem. And let's put your notes and we'll try it out and we'll have you guys share your answers in front of everyone here. And then once we're through that, then we'll get to the homework. Homework, remember, what is that? Page 2, page 3, due tomorrow. Don't forget that assignment. I think most of you have it done. You've already turned it in, finished, however you want to say it, done, complete, finished. It's due tomorrow if you haven't already. Maybe you haven't even started it. Remember, every problem up there, page 2, page 3, should have two numbers: the gross pay and the net pay after taxes came out. So if you haven't watched those videos, I have all those videos on for the whole week. Make sure you're going back and watching how we did those in class, because I reviewed it a couple days, Monday and Tuesday. Okay. Everyone understand what we're doing today? Okay, let's jump right in. Let's do this thing. All right, finding values. Let's do it for the first day here. I want to find the total hours for, this is the 12th of July. This is my time card for the summer. We're going to figure out the total hours that we work from 6:30 a.m. to noon. Okay? So, to do that, the trick is you can count with your fingers, most people do that. But, what I always do is you separate the day from where noon is, you calculate the morning, you calculate the afternoon or evening, and then you add the two together. That's just my process for how I do it. So if you go past noon, fine, just stop at noon and then you can use the numbers past noon. Like the next day I had 12:10, I'd go up to noon the first time, and then I'd go 10 minutes after that for the second column for the afternoon. So that'll be just the way I do it, and I'll show you the kind of a renaming process. But how you do this, you always take the bigger number, so get closer to noon, take the bigger number, and you're going to subtract the smaller number, 6:30 a.m. Now, this is the part where you need to rename things. Renaming is if I'm going to try to subtract straight down, I can't do that on the second column. The top number has to be bigger than the bottom. So you have to borrow an hour from this one. So I'm going to borrow from the 2, making that an 11, right? So this is now an 11 from the 12. I'm borrowing that. That's now an 11. And when you do that, how many minutes are in an hour?
60.
60. So you're going to change this to 60. Because if you borrowed an hour, you make it a 60. Now, if there's already a number sitting there, you can just add 60 to it. So that's one of the processes we're going to look at today for renaming. That's one of the first examples. Then you can subtract 6 minus 3 is 3. 11 minus 6 is 5. So that was 5 hours and 30 minutes in the morning. Now most people, yeah, it's common sense. I picked out easy ones here. But But the idea is that you can easily count with your fingers too, to double check, is that correct? But this is the process, renaming. So if let's say it was the morning, let's say it was like you work from 6:30 to 8:17. I don't think I have any of those, so I didn't give you a list with any 8:17s or anything like that. Where you're going from 6:30 to 8:17 in the morning. Well, yeah, you have to pick the bigger number, the number closer to noon, put that on the top. You have to put the 6:30 on the bottom. And when you borrow, you have to make this a 7, and now I have to add 60 to this next number. Well, 60 plus 1 is what, a 7? That's 70, 77 minutes. So you added 60 to it, and now I can subtract. 7 minus 0 is 7, 7 minus 3 is 4, 7 minus 6 is 1, so it's an hour and 47 minutes. You have to be able to do this. It's one of those things like it's kind of essential when you're in that job where you log hours. Because I mean that's the type of jobs you're probably going to get in high school or right out of high school until you get into a profession or career. You have to log your own hours. And something you should double check so that you're not getting time taken away from you. So I can definitely see problems arising there. Sometimes that does happen. Okay, here's what I'd like you to do. So I did the top one. I want the next couple here. I think I got 6 here. 7. Do I have 7? Do you have 7? 1, 2, 3. I have 6. I need to scroll. Okay, each row is going to get their own. So where's my cursor? Okay, each row is going to get their own here. So row 1. So it's this row over here. You guys are going to calculate the second time. Figure out the hours and minutes there. So just write in your notes. Second row, you guys. So this is your second row. You guys are doing 7:18. Figure out the minutes, hours there. So it's pretty straightforward. Third row, fourth row, fifth row, sixth row, seventh row. So the seventh row. Okay. Yep. So it should be first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. So there you go. So that should be you guys. 7:25. So know what date you're counting the hours. A lot of these pretty straightforward, but I want to see it on paper that you're trying it out. You're trying this whole renaming. I'm going to pull different examples out of the book here in a minute, because obviously a lot of these are the same. Some of them are not, which is kind of nice that they're all the same. It's kind of quick, kind of easy, because you're probably looking at the board going, "Ward, you just did one." That's good. You're probably recognizing that.
Hey, Ward, can I go grab my notebook?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh gosh, it's down counting to 10. Yes, it's probably in my ears. Wait, I want to look it up. I want to see it.
No.
It should be pretty easy. I tried to pick times that were pretty close to the one I did, so it should be pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Because some people are still working. Okay. Let's go. First row, you guys have it. What was the amount of hours or minutes that you guys had to work? 5 hours and 40 minutes. Now, what was the shortcut for you guys probably figured out? When you looked at your time and my time that I did on the board earlier. Yeah, exactly. That's why it's easy. That's why I did it. Right? I did mine so that when they're up, all they had to do was go, hey, it's almost the exact same amount of time that I did mine earlier. I did noon or from 6:30 to noon. They just had an extra 10 minutes, so they just added 10 minutes on. So they added 10 minutes to the 5:30, and they said 5:40. Perfect. Second row. What do you guys have? 5:30, same as mine, right? So that's easy enough. Third row, I guess.
5:30.
5:30 again. That's nice. It's easy when you've already done one of them and you already know it, that they're almost all the same. What are we on? Fourth row here. 5:35. You had to add an extra 5 minutes on, because I went to 12:05. Okay, next row.
5:35.
5:35 again. 5:30, because it was the exact same as mine. Last row.
5:30.
5:30. Easy, right? It's nice when you're consistent. Now, obviously, this is silly. Most people aren't going to have a perfect day where they're always working the same amount of hours. You can see I put a couple extra minutes here and there, and but I was trying to be consistent enough. 6:30, I was pretty consistent on that, but there's some days like I came in later. And so that's where doing that renaming process makes a difference. Okay? All right. So you guys got some practice with how easy that is. Now, since you guys knew all those times, to figure out your total hours, you have to add them all up. That is tedious. So I'm going to go through and I just want to, if I don't remember them, I just want to, the first one was what, 5:40? And then we had 5:30, 5:30, 5:35, 5:35, 5:30, and 5:30. Okay. All right. If we're adding these all up, you got to start on that right side. You got to start on this right side and work your way to the left. So it looks like we have 10. There's 1 over. That's 5, 8, 11, 14, 17, 21, 24. So this is a 24. So then the idea is that you have to get down to 60 minutes. That's 24. And you're like, oh, let's put a 4 there and carry a 2 over. You have to be thinking about how that actually works. Because every 6 that was in this column right here is another hour. How many 6s are in 24? 4. So instead of just putting a 4 here and carrying a 2, you have to think about whatever this number was, you have to divide it by 6. And if it turns out to be messy, you have to get as close to 6 without close to it as possible. I'll show you an example here in a minute. So instead of having a 24 there, that's a 0, and you're carrying a 4 to the next column, because 24 is 60 minutes. Okay, and then you'd add down. 10, 20, 39. So I put in a total of 39 hours, like even, that first couple days of July. You see how this can get messy? How that whole concept of like adding the 60s over and renaming, it can be messy, especially if like that middle column didn't work out. Like you had it, let's say it worked out to be 23, and I had a 23 sitting there for the minutes. You have to take 23 and divide by 6. Well, the closest you're going to get is probably 3, not 4. That's 18. And if I subtract 23 minus 18, what is that, 5? So what that means is that... Okay. Perfect. All right. So, hey, let's discuss. Now, I know this seems a little goofy, that you had to borrow, carry a number over. The reason being is because when we're doing the time card, the second row number, like the number that's closer to noon, or maybe it's in the afternoon, whatever number that is, you might have to borrow to make sure that that second digit is more than this number, like I did earlier. Because you have to make sure when you're subtracting, the second number is, and that's what we're practicing here. You got to practice borrowing from the hours, making the minutes larger. So, borrowing from the 4, adding a 6 to this next column, making it 370. That's perfect. Usually the minutes, I don't have to do that. If you ever had to borrow for the minutes, it's normal borrowing. You borrow 1 from here, add a 10 there. We didn't have to do that, okay? Because I didn't assign you to that. Okay, next one, borrow from the 11, made it 10, make this a 90. We added 60 to it, so 1090. Next column, you made this a 1, you added a 6, you made that 105, which is correct. Because 5 stayed there, this became a 10. Because maybe there was a 9 or an 8 or something you had to be bigger than. Okay? Next, borrow from the 6, making it a 5, add a 6 here, and you got a 9. I don't think that's correct. This should be a 10. Because you added a 6 to it. Okay? Okay, so it should be 100. 5 and 100. Okay, next one, you borrowed from the 2, made it a 1, made this a 6 and a 5. That's great. Borrowed from there, add a 6 on, made 85. Borrowed from 1 from there, put a 6 on, made 980. That's perfect. And I really like the fact when you borrowed from the 10, you just made it a 9. You didn't put a 1, or you didn't cross it out and put some weird stuff going on there. Some people like borrow from the 1, making a 1, or the 0 to 10, and yeah, you guys did it correctly. But again, what I'm saying, if you ever had to borrow from this number now, make it one less and just add a 10 to the next column if you ever had to go to the minutes route. That's normal. But the hours to minutes always gets people. Okay, do we feel comfortable with that stuff? I know it's silly, but it's nice to have practice with it.
Fantastic.
Okay, now, what you're going to be doing in your homework, number one, you're going to be calculating the hours and minutes between 2 hours. So the first part of your assignment you're going to be getting will be something very similar to this, where you're calculating hours and minutes between 2 times. They'll all be different. It's not going to be like mine where I try to pick roughly all the same so you guys can do it really quickly, where you actually have to subtract whatnot. This third part of your assignment, or the second part I should say, the second part of your assignment is where you have to add all those times up to get your total down here. So you figure out what you worked that week or that month or whatever that time is. Okay, that part is the tricky part where you have to add a bunch of times together. So let's practice one more time adding times here. But very nice job. I want to thank those volunteers coming up here because it's not easy to get in front of that. You don't have to be perfect. I appreciate that people came up here and gave it a hearty shot. Okay, so let's practice adding a bunch of times together here. So I'm going to give you 4 times, and I'm going to see if we can add these together on your notebook paper. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so the first day you worked 4 hours and 35 minutes. Second day you worked 3 hours and 52 minutes. Third day you worked 1 hour and 30 minutes. And the fourth and final day you worked that week, you worked 7 hours and 25 minutes.
Long day.
Okay, long day. That day you put in almost a full day there. Okay, so these are your 4 times. What I'd like to know is your final total for that week. Maybe you just had to put in 4 days, maybe it was Labor Day coming up, because I know we don't have school on Monday. So, I want to know your total. So put this in your notebook. This is going to be good practice. We don't get enough practice with this sometimes. Now, one of the things I did say like a long time ago is, I know you guys are still working, was that I want you to have a job or a profession in mind with a price that you're getting paid per hour or some yearly salary. Because one of the things we're going to calculate is if I gave you a time card on, let's say, a homework assignment, and I wanted to know what you're going to get paid for your job, if that's the hours you worked, I want to know what you're making that, for those hours worked. What your pay is, and what after taxes come out. So this is one of the practice things we're going to be having, and this will be a part of a bigger assignment we're going to do. So it's going to come all back to that first day when I said you had to pick a job, profession. Okay. Do I have a brave volunteer, and I'll turn off the camera if you want the camera off, to come up here and actually add these numbers up and convert? Do you have a brave person that wants to walk up here? I'll turn off the camera if you don't want the camera on. You want me to turn off the camera, Fred?
No.
No, leave it on. All right, here we go. I like the brave volunteers. All right, here we go. Even if you get the right, what are you doing? Oh, okay. And be confused by erasing. Keep going there, Fred.
Wait, what is?
That's a 2. What?
Okay. Okay, hey, this is great. Let's talk about this. Because you made the comments you kind of talked about earlier. All right. So, added the 5 and 2, made 12. Boom. Put the 2, carried the 1 over. Now, where you went wrong. Your second number is correct. What would you get? 14 for that next column?
All right.
Got a 14? Here's the thing. You're not going to put a 4 and carry a 1. Because those are hours. Right? Or minutes, I mean. These are minutes. So if you had a 14 here, right? You added this column up, the 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 5 plus 3, and you got 14 here. You have to figure out how many 60s are in that. Yeah, 2 60s are in that. And you would have 2 left. Because you'd have to think about, okay, 14 is 6, like 60 minutes. So that's 14, right? 6 and 6. And you'd have 2 left over. These are the amount of hours you work. 60 minutes is 2 hours that you're carrying over to the next column, and you have a 2 sitting there. You have to convert the minutes, because you had over 60 minutes. You had almost like 140 minutes. So you had to carry that over. So 6, 6, and 2 make 14, and these represent 60 minutes, so that's 2 hours. That's a breakdown. Make sense? And now you have a 2. So now, if you had a 2 in the next column, what would you get, Fred? 17. There's your hours. Anyone? I know, it's a tricky one. Okay? Hey, I appreciate it, though. It's one of those things we gotta get practice with. Nothing's worse than that minute idea. I know it's really hard to like hear it for the first time. If you had a number that's a 2-digit number in this column, you have to figure out how many 6s are in it, because that means 60 minutes. So if it was a 14, you have to convert that back. There's 2 hours in there plus some extras. Okay, that's something we need practice on. Okay, all right, I'm going to give you the rest of the time today to work on your assignment, that page 2, page 3. Tomorrow, we're getting a brand new assignment. So be ready to go. That assignment will be due on Tuesday next week. And remember, you don't have Monday, so Tuesday is the day of due. So it's kind of a short turnaround. Now, if any of you are going to be gone tomorrow for sure, like I know I'm gone tomorrow, I got an appointment, or I know I've got vacation or something, let me know. I have the assignment I can give you. But it'll be on my website if you haven't seen. The rest of the time is yours though. About 10 minutes. We'll practice that tomorrow. Fred, I appreciate you getting up in front of it.
Man, it's so easy.
How was your egg trip yesterday?
Oh, that was good.
Was it good?
Yeah.